Welcome to episode 4 of Arcanum Lore, Spring of Fools. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some of the incredible things that happened this month. As the world tiptoed through vaccine rollouts and new lockdowns, India suffered greatly at the hands of COVID. Talk of stimulus and economic collapse echoed through the halls of power, and spring has arrived in the Northern Hemisphere, bringing with it a feeling of optimism and resurgence, while our environment again takes a back seat to economics and politics. This episode of Arcanum Lore lights a beacon of hope that the powers that be will someday see the light. This is episode 4, Spring of Fools. Featuring creative works by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Langston Hughes, Finlay Hall, David Grubb, Charles Darnell, Rudyard Kipling, Tom Woodruff, Mike Butler, Spartacus Anagnosterus, Ezra Pound, Ed Gonzalez, Dom Domansky, John Keats, Bridget Cooley, James Joyce, Jeff Pettigrew, Adrian Rich, Greg Milne, and Chris Billings. Doubt No More That Oberon, by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Doubt no more that Oberon, never doubt that Pan lived and played a reed and ran, after nymphs in a dark forest in the merry credulous days, lived and led a fairy band over the indulgent land. Ah, for in this dourest, sorest age man's eye has looked upon death to fauns and death to fays. Still the dogwood dares to raise, healthy tree with trunk and root, ivory bowls that bear no fruit, and the starlings and the jays, birds that cannot even sing, dare to come again in spring. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. This is a way to kill a wife with kindness, and thus I'll curb her mad and headstrong humor.
Did we ever mess up and our best was not enough? Did I think put on a show, hit rock bottom a new low? Tried to take it all in stride and to show a little pride. Took it with a grain of salt, even when it's not my fault. I blame me and I blame you. Look at what you made me do. Maybe I didn't think things through. Foolish me and foolish you. Foolish me and foolish you. Wonder why it took so long when we both knew we were wrong. I could write a book on this, but my point you're gonna miss. I blame me and I blame you. Look at what you made me do. Maybe I didn't think things through. Foolish me and foolish you. Foolish me and foolish you. It's so hard looking back. I can't give you any slack. Shake your head and roll your eyes. Spare me all those little lies. I blame me and I blame you. I blame me and I blame you. Look at what you made me do. Maybe I didn't think things through. Foolish me and foolish you. Foolish me and foolish you. Foolish me and foolish you. Foolish me and foolish you.
The Weary Blues by Langston Hughes. Droning a drowsy syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon, I heard a Negro play. Down on Lenox Avenue the other night, by the pale, dull pallor of an old gas light, he did a lazy sway, to the tune of those weary blues. With his ebony hands on each ivory key, he made that poor piano moan with melody. Oh, blues! Swaying to and fro on his rickety stool, he played that sad, raggy tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues coming from a black man's soul, oh, blues. In a deep song voice with a melancholy tone, I heard that Negro sing that old piano moan. Ain't got nobody in all this world, ain't got nobody but myself. I's gwine to quit my frownin' and put my troubles on the shelf. Thump, thump, thump went his foot on the floor. He played a few chords, but then sang some more. I got the weary blues and I can't be satisfied. Got the weary blues and can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more, and I wish that I had died. And far into the night he crooned that tune. The stars went out and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed, while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock or a man that's dead. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. But love is blind, and lovers cannot see the pretty follies that themselves commit. For if they would, Cupid himself would blush to see me thus transformed to a boy. The Naughty Boy by John Keats. There was a naughty boy was he. He would not stop at home, he could not quiet be. He took in his knapsack a book full of vowels, and a shirt with some towels, a slight cap for a nightcap, a hair-brush comb ditto, new stockings for old ones, would split this knapsack tight at its back, he riveted close, and followed his nose to the north, and followed his nose to the north. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he, for nothing would he do but scribble poetry. He took an inkstand in his hand, and a pen, big as 10, in the other, and away in a pother he ran to the mountains and fountains and ghosts and posts and witches and ditches, and wrote in his coat, when the weather was cool, fear of gout, and without, when the weather was warm, och, the charm, when we chose to follow one's nose to the north, to follow one's nose to the north. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He kept little fishes in washing tubs 3. In spite of the might of the maid, nor afraid of his granny good, he often would hurly-burly get up early and go, by hook or crook, to the brook, and bring home miller's thumb, tittlebat, not overfat, minnows small as the stall of a glove, not above the size of a nice little baby's little fingers. Oh, he made 'twas his trade of fish a pretty kettle, a kettle, of fish a pretty kettle, a kettle. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He ran away to Scotland, the people for to see. Then he found that the ground was as hard, that a yard was as long, that a song was as merry, that a cherry was as red, that lead was as weighty, that 80, that a door was as wooden as in England. So he stood in his shoes, and he wondered. He stood in his shoes, and he wondered. The Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, understood at last as a sexual message, by Adrian Rich. A man in terror of impotence or infertility, not knowing the difference. A man trying to tell something, howling from the climacteric music of the entirely isolated soul, yelling at joy from the tunnel of the ego. Music without the ghost of another person in it. Music trying to tell something the man does not want out. Would keep if he could, gagged and bound and flogged with cords of joy, where everything is silence and the beating of a bloody fist upon a splintered table. Chasing Fossils in St. Audrey's Bay, by Spartacus and Agnosterus. My dearest memory, I woke up early this morning in my room. I am not going to wash my hair or shave. We just need to pack up quickly and go away. My beautiful memory, me and you in St. Audrey's Bay. You take pictures of the glittering sea. A waterfall cascades down the cliff to join the wholeness of the sea. My sweetheart, try to remember the roots of the dried tree. The branches stand on a cliff, how they wait for the salt water to touch them gently. My darling, I feel sad, all-conquering time is precious. Let me feel the moment when the waves carve figures in the rough rocks. Let me touch the curved pebbles. My dear one, a pebble with fingerprints, and a pebble with the alphabet of the sea. I count the pebbles, and you throw them into the sea. I feel angry. I look at the huge sculpture on the beach. It resembles a seating made of limestone. 2 people are arguing, and their dog is swimming. My comrade, a high tide is coming. We have to go. The sea will claim everything for itself. Did you find any fossils? Mnemosyne? My beloved one rests on a rock. There are no clouds in the sky. I look at a small bird that moves quickly. My sweetheart, you open your hand. You look at it like a fortune-teller. You put a small shell on my palm. I can now listen to the wind of the ocean. It is my lullaby. What Are the Poets For? By David Grubb. This is part 4 of Retreats and Recoveries. The life and its language is engaging extremes, pulpit persuasion, words as holy birds, and Tennyson's charge crackling from the past, so that mistakenly place and age make meaning memorable, until one is so startled by the reality of this activity, words as wounds and bared confessions. Then the land and purpose change. What we are doing here with these words changes us, the ordering and reordering of our searching. What are the poets for in this motion and emotion to express, celebrating and confusing architectures of the soul? What we see is not what we feel, is not what we say we are saying, finding a voice in palaces and prisons of the intellect. At the end of each idea there is a silence, waiting to chew back along the dotted line to begin again. Or between howls and hallelujahs we hear, tap, tap the sticks of doubt, stopping everything that we valued. Biting off more than we knew, hurting ourselves and our friends, unsure about success, dreading rebuke and blocks. Sometimes attempting between flight and originality, the brutish new direction of slang, obscenity, a blunt, catalyst thrust. But then Crane leaps, Berryman jumps, Thomas bombards his brain with booze, the famous die and cheat themselves. Gently we roll the diction, split prosody, and warn ourselves of greatness, to discover truth between an error and a dream. Whose language have we become when the singing gets outside our head, jostles others, never protects? What do we think we do to ourselves between the orchards of childhood and the waiting rooms with views? In the winter park I can see myself reading a poem, writing something down, catching light between unseen stars. April, by Dom Domansky. Snow melts along earshot, mice quiet as door jambs, spider eggs piping. Just a little under stones, grass 2 wing beats away from light, all the dead sparrows returning to their nests. The road went back there where trees roost upon the emptiness, to find shadows of untraceable labors, interwoven with black ferns and twigs. Oleograph of seeming still life rippled by a transcendence on its rounds. The blind corners of rainy days, thunders pull on rabbit fur, and a ditch of fire thrown to earth. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. Smoke by Chris Billings. I wish he would quit that nasty habit, I thought for the who knows how many times, as the smoke curling up from his cigarette blended in with the dirt on the window. The outside world a blurry place barely visible past his silhouetted figure, against the smudged and smeared glass. I'm all too familiar with this scene, the set of his jaw, the clenched, unclenched fist, the way he sits, knees bent, one bare foot pulled close to the wooden ledge, his spot, his safe haven. I watch as he takes another long drag, the tip of his cigarette twitching ever so slightly. From the tension in his body he sucks in his addiction. His life-shortening crutch, his only enjoyment, he tells me, when things go wrong, as they always seem to do on days like these, days when conversations go sour, but still. I wish he'd quit that nasty habit, stop filling the room with putrid smoke, stop hurting himself. And I imagine he wishes I'd stop too, stop filling the room with putrid words, stop hurting him, stop hurting us. The Jester, by Langston Hughes. In one hand I hold tragedy, and in the other comedy. Masks for the soul laugh at me, you would laugh. Weep with me, you would weep. Tears are my laughter, laughter is my pain. Cry at my grinning mouth, if you will. Laugh at my sorrow's reign, I am the black jester, the dumb clown of the world, the booted fool of silly men. Once I was wise, shall I be wise again? Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Nay, and I tell you that I'll never look you in the face again. But those that understood him smiled at one another and shook their heads, but for mine own part it was Greek to me. Fill for me a brimming bowl by John Keats. Fill for me a brimming bowl, and in it let me drown my soul. But put therein some drug designed to banish women from my mind. For I want not the stream inspiring that fills the mind with fond desiring. But I want as deep a draught as e'er from Lethe's wave was quaffed, from my despairing heart to charm the image of the fairest form, that ere my reveling eyes beheld, that ere my wandering fancy spelled, in vain away I cannot chase the melting softness of that face, the beaminess of those bright eyes, that breast, earth's only paradise. My sight will never more be blessed, for all I see has lost its zest. Nor with delight can I explore the classic page or muse's lore. Had she but known how beat my heart, and with one smile relieved its smart, I should have felt a sweet relief, I should have felt the joy of grief. Yet as the Tuscan mid the snow of Lapland dreams on sweet Arno, even so forever shall she be the halo of my memory. Zen and the Zappy Zealot. A sudden inclination for a torpid condition gives me somewhat of a diverse verbal repertoire with which to convince the world of my illness, a benign case of flowing thought cancer. I find with extreme disgust that my constantly bludgeoning audience has little or no ambition to expand and enchant their anorexic cerebrums. It is truly unfortunate that to say this state of reciprocal affairs left me immersed in a severe puddle of wrath would be more than a slight understatement. But to say the least shameful and wholly serendipitous act of flabbering and jabbering whilst I speak my relaxed mind. Hence, I bid you all, my sweet audience of rogues, thieves, and malcontents, shut the fuck up. Rose-Colored Answers by Bridget Cooley. You asked me if my heart had been broken recently. I danced around the question in response. The answer is yes, kind of. Maybe a better answer is that it's in the process of breaking, while simultaneously being pieced back together by someone new. It's confusing. I don't know if I've ever been a whole person. I'm not really complaining about that. I think the fact that I feel the absence of things I've never had helps me keep my eyes open. Fantastic Quote by William Shakespeare. The king's a bawcock and a heart of gold, a lad of life, an imp of fame, of parents good, of fist most valiant. How the Whale Got His Throat by Rudyard Kipling. When the cabin portholes are dark and green because of the seas outside, when the ship goes wop with a wiggle between, and the steward falls into the soup tureen, and trunks begin to slide when Nursey lies on the floor in a heap, and Mummy tells you to let her sleep, and you aren't waked or washed or dressed, why then you will know, if you haven't guessed, you're 50 north and 40 west. Statement of Being by Ezra Pound. I am a grave poetic hen that lays poetic eggs, and to enhance my temperament, a little quiet begs. We make the yolk philosophy, true beauty the albumen, and when gum on the shell of form to make the screed sound human. Trunk-like by Ed Gonzalez. Was once told you can't grow trees in a greenhouse because of the resistance the trees display while in the wind of turbulence, strengthens the lineage of the tree so it may benefit all who come in contact with our sturdy roots and fortitude with that your network of feelers and connectors are able to gather nutrients and share impulses and energy with the year we just had. We are all Hulk-like for sure. Fantastic Quote by William Shakespeare. Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I am done, for thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than, I am sure, I have in my whole 5. Was I with you there for the goose? Teacher by Langston Hughes. Ideals are like the stars always above our reach. Humbly I tried to learn, more humbly did I teach. On all honest virtues I sought to keep firm hold. I wanted to be a good man, though I pinched my soul. But now I lie beneath cool loam, forgetting every dream, and in this narrow bed of earth no lights gleam. In this narrow bed of earth star dust never scatters, and I tremble lest the darkness teach me that nothing matters. Strings in the Earth and Air by James Joyce. Strings in the earth and air make music sweet, strings by the river where the willows meet. There's music along the river, for love wanders there, pale flowers on his mantle, dark leaves on his hair. All softly playing, with head to the music bent, and fingers straying upon an instrument. Fantastic Quote by William Shakespeare. If, thou protector of this damned strumpet, talk'st thou to me of ifs, thou art a traitor, off with his head. Such an Ordinary Day by Finley Hall. It was such an ordinary day, such an ordinary meal. The way you got up, pushed your chair back in, got up, and went to your room, and played your music, just an ordinary day. We thought nothing of it, nothing out of the ordinary. The music not too loud, even when we said good night and there was no reply. Presumed you were sleeping, we thought nothing of it. You never showed for breakfast, no dishes in the sink, no breadcrumbs on the table, the milk and juice untouched. Cutlery, crockery, tea, coffee, oddly still in place, when you never showed for breakfast. We checked inside your room, your bed was still made, unslept in, unaltered, the record on the turntable, needle at the end, but switched off, clothes still hanging up, when we checked your bedroom. The front door was still locked, your key still on the hook, your coat on the peg untouched, since you hung it there, when you came home from college. After another week of learning, behind you the door was locked. Nobody left the house that night. A family meal was planned, some chat about the weekend ahead. You said you wanted a quiet one, at home with the family. We so looked forward to that, no plans to leave the house that night. We called the police, reported you gone. We're told we had to wait 24 hours. That day we felt so alone, anxious, crying, trying to make sense. Time stopped. It felt empty inside. Next day the police were called again. The searching was to no avail. Neighbors questioned, news reports on every channel, media coverage online too, wielding us not a clue. Years on, the same, the emptiness, still searching to no avail. Still no sign, no clue, no hint of how you could disappear. On a clear night so long ago, when all was well within you, no family fights or squabbles, no sign of discontent. We still wait and hope and, well, everything must go on. Life doesn't stop outside these doors. It's not for others to feel as we, empty, anxious, on edge at times. The doorbell rings and no, we still hope and wait. The Spring by Ezra Pound. Sidonian spring with her attendant train, Melids and water girls, stepping beneath a boisterous wind from Thrace. Throughout this sylvan place spreads the bright tips, and every vine stalk is clad in new brilliancies. And wild desire falls like black lightning, bewildered heart. Though every branch have back what last year lost, she, who moved here amid the cyclamen, moves only now a clinging tenuous ghost. The Twilight Turns by James Joyce. The twilight turns from amethyst to deep and deeper blue. The lamp fills with a pale green glow the trees of the avenue. The old piano plays an air, sedate and slow and gay. She bends upon the yellow keys, her head inclines this way. Shy thought and grave wide eyes and hands that wander as they list. The twilight turns to darker blue with lights of amethyst. Pass me a drink at a cocktail party. The pellet with the poison's in the chalice from the palace. The flagon with the dragon has the brew that is true. But wait! The ewer has the cure for the pellet with the poison, so the chalice from the palace is merely a passion for fashion. The crock with the engraving of a cock, now that has a spruce juice. Bait a woman with a crock engraved with a cock, catch a wife for life. A fumbler with a tumbler baits his mates with the flagon with a dragon, 'cause the flagon with the dragon has the brew that is true. The ass with the glass stole the ewer with the cure, so that left the chalice from the palace with the pellet with the poison. My wife for life drank from the crock with the engraving of a cock. The backstabbing bastard gave me the chalice from the palace. Suddenly sullen, I realized the vial of the villain. But don't fret, I'm smarter yet. I switched the cure ewer for the palace chalice with the poison pellet. That's a wrap, let's recap. The ass with the glass has the pellet with the poison. The fumbler with the tumbler has the brew that is true. My wife for life has her crock with a cock, and I have the ewer with the cure on the rocks. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Knock, knock, who's there, in th'other devil's name? Pubs and Butcher Shops by Tom Woodruff. Both had sawdust on the floor. Soaks up blood best, they explained. I could see the flanks of meat hanging from a butcher's curved hook, and I saw enough drunken fights to turn me into a coffee shop library. Male anger with only fists as punctuation. Shouts and curses the preface. Crowds always want blood. Mini coliseums, pre-boutique breweries, pre-wine and cheese, rough and raw as broken chairs, all men, and boys seeking their first blooding, growing up by being knocked down, puffed cheeks, bruises, and bashed eyes common, when words failed, and the punctuation of punches knocked some sense into the senseless. Of course they were drunk, enough to flare up a fight, beer boys, full of piss and vinegar, always something to fight about. I wonder why or who, just the blood in the sawdust scarlet as a letter. All these useless violences as old as dust in distance. Softer now a chilled wine, some cheese. Settle down, son. Don't ruin the atmosphere. Poppy Me by Ed Gonzalez. Ah, now I pop up out of the grass, and my bud weighing heavily on my stem. It was not too many moons and suns ago I was first buried under a sheet of ice, then thawed. I cracked the surface only to be buried again by 6 feet of snow and then thaw. Then now our spring is back by our sun, and my buds have sprung petals of lightness and airy to offer a feast for the fluttery critters, spring. Shots Fired by Chris Billings. He learned to count to 10, but never seems to get past 9 on a good day. Typically makes it to 5, 2 on a bad day. He read the news again today, another story of the same old story. He said, she said, they said, it's all been said before. Nothing seems to change, not even the music. People being people, that's what really bothers him most. People being people, being people. And no drinks were had, save a beer with a slice or two of pizza. Just a strange mood tonight, today. The black crows, the carpenters, songs are music. He heard the news again today, another down, another dead, another mother cries, people being people, being people. He dreams a lot at night, vivid movie dreams in full color with sound, then wakes in the morning until he won't. Sirens sing sad songs somewhere. Sirens are music. Sorta. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. If it be so, sir, that you are the man must stead us all, and me amongst the rest, and if you break the ice and do this feat, achieve the elder, set the younger free for our access, whose hap shall be to have her, with not so graceless, be to be ingrate. Reflections on the Flood by Charles Darnell. I have many names, though the great book leaves me nameless. I am Nama, the second Eve, mother to the only sons left of earth. My husband's great ark undulates on angry waves, no land seen for a long span. I recall the slither of serpents, the trundle of elephants, the raucous call of macaws, the smell of dung and confusion and the crowding. Every type of animal aboard this boat, but no children. I saw the upthrust arms of mothers holding their babes as the sea swallowed them, their cries drowned by salty swirls. The innocent died with the wicked, no time for sorting by the great maker of time. The cruelty of Baal, the blood-thirst of Moloch, are nothing to compare. Mankind made those sacrifices, and this God makes his own. Genesis 6:9. My Body Wants to Keep Me Alive by Bridget Cooley. Sometimes I hold my breath in the shower to see if my survival instinct will kick in. So far, it does. Right on time, every time. But once, I counted to 120 before my lips parted and my lungs expanded. Yesterday, I fell asleep to the sound of rain on my windowsill and cried when I woke up for no reason. I have always wanted to be a rain cloud, poetic and pretty, a blessing, a terror, to move on quickly after emptying myself one drop at a time. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Yes, for a score of kingdoms you should wrangle, and I would call it fair play. Geometry of Stonehenge by Spartacus and Agnosterus. Pull over at the next stop, I tell myself at midnight when I am traveling back to my place. Little red fox, you stand in the middle of the road like an unborn poem before you disappear. I search for your eyes, and my heart is my last coin for a book of Jules Verne. Hey, fox, you are part of my dreams, an archetype of a living soul in the city of Atlantis, with its geometrical achievements. Next morning, my body feels like a pile of bones unwilling to move. How do you create a poem in a city? By building many roads for people to be able to travel. I look at the words in a Word document on my mobile, and the poem is not there. How can I address a mobile? My dear mobile inspires me with your advanced technology to create a poem. Or could you say to your mobile, I met your existence in every road that I traveled, and you said that every road exists for a journey. I shave myself, I cut myself, it doesn't hurt. The blood, a blooming rose. 4 walls obstruct my view, outside the day is sunny. I look at my mobile screen, not for words, I am looking for an excuse to get away. On my way to Stonehenge, a dead fox on the motorway. Death for animals has different meaning than it has for us. When will my journey finish? A battle with my ego builds another road with blood. At Stonehenge, round houses of the builders, with chalk walls, a thatched roof, and a hearth of Neolithic people to tell their story. I see the giant circles, every movement of life. Around me seems enchanting, I feel part of a religious procession. Stonehenge, a marker of time for dead ancestors that traveled together with their stones. I take pictures from different angles. Is this the wrong site? Woodhenge was built for the living, a timber circle monument. Birds fly and sit on the lintel that stands on 2 upright stones. Like the symbol pi, I think again of you, little fox. Should I let nature guide my ways? Is geometry of prehistoric circles more sophisticated than geometry of modern cities? I wish I could travel in a different way, going to Stonehenge through River Avon. I see a boat full of soil and flowers. I feel like a pirate that has waited for too long to sail. I look at the River Avon, little fox, you exist. Even when you stop existing, you flow like water in my words. My journey ends a mirrored sunset on the river. At night, Stonehenge is still standing. Consider Job by Charles Darnell. Part 1. Lord, thou art God, and I, thy servant, bow to thy will in all things, and question not thy wisdom. Thou hast set me suffering, scattering my wealth, taking my children, and yet I glorify thee. Thou set upon my skin reddened boils, and I lay in dust and ashes, as thou wouldst have me, and still I am thy tool. In my pain I cry for justice, and thy answer only, thou art God. My companion sayest, repent my sins, for my suffering is surely a sign from thee. Yet thee reproacheth them, and say they art the sinners, and I the blameless one. Thou, in thy mysterious wisdom, restored my wealth after all suffering, and gave unto me children, years to see unto the 4th generation. And in the fullness of my years I heeded thy call for home. Part 2. Lord, I recline now at the foot of thy throne, and in my heavenly reward I humbly ask for thy indulgence, to answer that which vexes me sorely. Lord, do thou, as God all-powerful, followeth thy law of just treatment? Can thou disdain thy law and yet still be God? Did thou thinkest I loved my firstborn less because thou bestowest others? Does the adversary rule thy actions with his chiding? I asked only to be judged on balanced scales, yet, like a dishonest butcher, thou caste eyes to Satan, wink and lay thy thumb on the weighted pan. Book of Job. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Now tell me how long you would have her after you have possessed her. Forever and a day. Hangs by Mike Butler. Our Father hangs in our house, present or absent, a disciplined, stagnant, hurtful air, lingering pirate breath, obedient surroundings, demands of our minds, of our spirit, of our bodies, of our patience, an occasional smile, a dance with our mother before the hurt, before the discipline. His world is our world, no give, no take, unpredictable behavior here or there, until the day he hangs up his work hat for the last time prematurely. Our Father hangs in our house, floating, swaying, gasping, shoeless, desperate, soulless, still dominant, hovering still above us all, broken furniture, fractured lives, moist eyes, but no tears. Our Father hangs in our house, oil on canvas, eye level, still watching, still dominating. The air is still cold, hurtful, a reminder. In our house, not his. In our world, not his. Something so vile turned into art. He was not a gift. This is not a gift. I am a father hanging in our house. My mother hangs out clothes. My sister hangs new curtains, yellow, bright, hopeful. I stand with my son and hang a new picture of our new family. Fantastic quote by William Shakespeare. Be thou as chaste as ice, as pure as snow, thou shalt not escape calumny. Get thee to a nunnery, go. Restoring Humanity by Tom Woodruff. Anywhere at any time it can happen. Someone you have never met welcomes you into their world. You learn by listening to their life. Their soundtrack different to yours. Accent, dialect, background, mannerisms. I met engineers from Red Adair who were flying to Kuwait to close down burning oil wells. Musicians from ZZ Top happy to sign an autograph. Strangers with stories so compelling, one stops, adapts, and imbibes their sweet unfamiliarities. Everyone is going somewhere. Everybody needs ears and time to share. Sweet elixir of caring creates a new world where the old one used to be, only better. We grow by association. Your oracles are oracles of oceans. Aging Provocateur by Finlay Hall. I am senior, I am old, not dead yet, not incapable yet, not losing my sight enough to miss the rise of fascism here, not deaf enough to not hear the right laughing as they try and grind our souls into the soil, not senile enough to not understand the agenda the mainstream media support, not incapable that I just accept that law and order is always right. I am well enough to realize that people can be fooled by tousled hair buffoons, that splits are made by those who see the gaps are ready to be widened. I stand straight enough to not be bent by hollow lies and propaganda. Toppling statues is just a diversion where male perversion isn't punished as much as marching in a pandemic. We should not be gathering in groups so large. I aware that I would not do that. But there should be no causes given so such things need to happen. No taking advantage of the fact that lockdown can make us complacent. Clap your hands, bang your pots. Westminster doesn't give a toss. The more that die, the less they have to spend. And they will use any ends to ensure they and their friends stay rich and comfortable, whilst the poorer, the hungrier are left to fend for themselves. In this oil-rich, nuclear-rich country, in a world where billionaires abound, charities should not be needed, food banks unheeded, as there is the possibility that all could be fed. Sadly, hatred can be inbred, passed down from old to young, not all, but many young, and this not having a go. But many now blame their elders, were prepared for their elders to COVID die, so they could continue their worship of their freedom. These times we live in, this time we suffer in, is called the age of technology, but in reality it is the age of manipulation, capitulating to the sense of me instead of earthbound and the sense of we. No doubt technology has saved our minds and can save our lives, but don't let it be our lives and believe everything Twitter says. The Sun and Daily Mail will have their evil way with you by convincing you that the police are right and that the might they throw at you as they throw that punch at you to move you on is only them doing their job, I right. With knobs on, they are. But as long as people buy these rags, as long as they click on their pages, the rages that we feel about these days will never disappear. Let's make it clear. Us elders didn't all make it this way. Some did, no doubt, but lies were said, vows were made. They said it was going to be okay. Right now we need to kill the bill before the bill kills us. Featuring creative works by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Langston Hughes, Finlay Hall, David Grubb, Charles Darnell, Rudyard Kipling, Tom Woodruff, Mike Butler, Spartacus Anagnosterus, Ezra Pound, Ed Gonzalez, Dom Domansky, John Keats, Bridget Cooley, James Joyce, Jeff Pettigrew, Adrian Rich, Greg Milne, and Chris Billing.